Hey guys, today I want to talk about the perk design of weapons in Space Marine 2 and why a lot of these feel very uninspired. So I was thinking about this today about like why do so many guns in this game feel poor? Why does build variety in Space Marine 2 feel so limited? And like beyond actual class perk trees, the biggest issue I have with Space Marine 2 currently are the weapon perk trees. There are a lot of boring perk effects, and what's worse than a boring perk effect, like say perpetual penetration, each shot penetrates one additional target. I would say this is a fairly boring perk effect, but even this one is like one that would change your gameplay more. The issue I have with perks in this game is that you have ones that are just non-decisions. Let's say, for example, if you're playing the auto bolt rifle, you will just take Elite Hunter. After you damage rolls over a higher enemy, the melee weapon headshots will deal 25% more damage for 10 seconds. To not take this perk is to drop your damage so much, like there is just no reason that you would ever build off of this perk ever, pretty much. Like who is ever taking an increased capacity over this one? Pretty much nobody. And like that's my biggest issue with the perks in this game, is that there are things that are just blatantly more important. It's even worse on the melee weapons. Like for example, on the Plasma Incinerator, we have perks like Perpetual Velocity that make your shots charge 15% faster. The more you play Space Marine 2, the more you realize that weapons like Plasma, they simply need to charge faster or you will not get stagger off, you will not get your CHP back as fast, they will do less damage overall. So perks like this, even on variants that are not rate of fire, simply become like nearly mandatory, or if they're not mandatory, they're so good that like you have no reason to ever not pick them up. Because like you look at a perk like this, Common Efficiency, common shots generate 20% less heat and shots charge 20% slower. This is a perk that makes your weapon actively worse. Like, I don't know who's coming up with these kind of perk designs, because common efficiency here, 20% less heat on a common shot is dog shit on its own. Losing your charge rate on your charge shots, that is literally built into your weapon perk tree here, or your core perk tree with plasma boost. This entire perk is built around charge shots. This perk makes your charge shots worse. Why would you ever use this perk? Like, that's the real question. And like, that's my big issue with Saber Interactive. And another problem with melee weapons in this game, if you look at the Bulwark, or, you know, just the Thunderhammer in general. So I've talked a lot about the Thunderhammer in this game. Fast Preparation says aftershock preparation times reduced by 30%. I take this on basically every single build ever, because there is no reason to not take this perk. And the perk above it here, Calm Before the Storm, or Preparing Aftershock, you take 10% less range damage. This perk is so much worse than Fast Preparation, it's honestly comical. Like, the fact that this perk has been in the game for like a year is hilarious. I don't know who at Saber thinks this perk is even like remotely an equivalent choice. Let's say, for example, you do decide to go up here and take Armored Strength for that 10% damage increase, but over the Perpetual Strength, it's a flat 5%, which this one is better in my opinion. But let's say you do take this one for that extra 5%, and you go into this perk, well, you're actually losing more damage by taking this row, because Fast Preparation is giving you so many more Aftershocks, which is even better with things like Aftershock Improved, because without this perk, the weapon play is fundamentally worse, and like that is the big problem. Like, there are such quote-unquote mandatory perks in Space Marine 2. Like, you go to the Power Sword, you see a perk like Cutting Edge, Power Rake deals 50% more melee damage. The Power Sword's best attack in the entire game is the Power Rake. 50% more melee damage, even if it was additive, is still an incredible bonus. This one up here, Reeling Blow, enemies hit by Power Rake could deal 40% less damage for 8 seconds, and the cooldown is 15 seconds. Even if you made this perk have no cooldown at all, Power Rake on the Cutting Edge Power Rake bonus is still better. So it's very strange to me they decide like this is a good idea, like these are proper perk designs, because when you look at most builds in Space Marine 2, the perk changes are almost non-existent. Like, the only real choice on a Power Sword, in my opinion, if you're going for like a quote-unquote good build on it, is like, okay, am I taking Master of Offense in the top tree, or am I taking a Master of Defense down here, because all the other options are worse. Going down here for melee damage just makes sense. The perk up here, Skilled Restoration, where your health is below 30%, a power roll hit restores when armor segment, cooldown is 10 seconds. These perks are not horrific, but like a lot of the perks don't even function with a lot of the weapons in this game, because a perk like Momentum Gain, each consecutive light attack increases light attack melee damage by 3% up to 30% for 3 seconds. This perk on a block weapon, which is, you know, one of your 4 relic tier options, or even a Xenophase Blade, you're just not getting as many light attacks off. So like, your options for choice in weapon perk trees go down so dramatically the more you use the stronger variants of the weapon, because unfortunately in Space Marine 2, the best 2 variants of the Power Sword currently are just the block version and the Xenophase Blade, and they're both the slowest, so perks like Hard Target automatically fall off a little bit, It's not that fencing versions are necessarily bad. It's just that the discrepancy in weapon power levels in this game is quite dramatic, which pretty much leads people into being railroaded into very particular choices, because despite Space Marine 2 being an overall casual game, which it is, and that's a good thing for the game, like it is an overall casual game, people are still obsessed with like what is best, what is going to carry my bad teammates in like my hard stratagem games the most. So they're naturally going to gravitate towards the strongest options, or the easiest to play options. In this case, fencing is easier to play the block. But the point is that when you have such a powerful weapon that makes some of your perks obsolete, or at least significantly less effective, you're really just narrowing down the choices of players. And the whole point of a perk tree in a game like this is build variety. But when you have so many non-choices, you pretty much lose that build variety. That's a big problem I have with the game in general, is that they did rework the perk trees at one point, and ever since then, it's just been the exact same thing, which is like, okay, everybody picks like 2 different perks, everybody picks like 1 different perk in a tree, and like that's the major difference in their build. Even in the build guides I talk about, it's like, okay, what do you want to take at the end? Do you want to take power restoration, speed restoration, or Minority Slayer? Because like that's the only real choice in this tree. Like that is like really the only choice, because you're never taking fencing blade on a block power sword. You're never taking the perk up here, slashing blade, on a block power sword. Hell, you're not even taking it on a fencing power sword, because how often in this game are you going all the way to 5 hits on your combo? Pretty much never. And like perks like this don't make a lot of sense in the game. I'm pretty sure the reason that these are in the game is because they made the animations for 5 attacks. They want to leave it in the game, and removing these perks is basically removing dev work, which is pretty silly to me. But like I understand why they keep these perks in the game for that reason. But as far as like how the game is fundamentally set up, 5 attack strings rarely if ever happen, because the way that parrying mechanics work in Space Marine 2 is that you are forced to interact with certain things. Like you look at the Thunder Hammer, when you're charging up an Aftershock, you are forced to stop a lunging Minoris. If a Minoris decides to lunge at you and you are charging up an Aftershock, there is nothing you can do except get out of the way or grab them out of the air with like the automatic execution. And to do either one of those things is to break your Aftershock charge, which is why a weapon like this feels so bad to so many players. And if there were perks that were like proper no knockback perks in the game, because this is another thing I want to talk about, is that no knockback, and I'm a little bit scatterbrained here, but no knockback perks on the actual weapons in this game are so much worse than the no knockback perks built into the actual core perk tree. So for example, once again, Tranquility. While in powerful stance, you don't lose control from heavy hits and you can't be knocked back. This perk isn't like fundamentally bad. It's that the perk over here that you are pretty much always taking, you're either going to be taking Armor Advance or you'll be taking Merciless Resolve on a Bulwark. And both of these give you no knockback flat out for everything for 10 seconds, or when you have armor respectively. And these perk effects are so much stronger than anything built into your weapon perk tree for no knockback, that like every single option for no knockback on these actual weapon perks becomes completely redundant. The only place that this is like properly done where they have no knockback built into the weapons, like for example, Kill Streak sucks. This perk is awful. It says after killing 7 enemies in rapid succession with a light combo, not a heavy combo, not just with your weapon, with a light combo, you get no knockback for 5 seconds with a 10-second cooldown. Who the fuck is prepping for this perk? Who's using this perk and like counting the seconds so they can actually use it again? Fucking nobody is the answer, because everybody's just going to take one of these 2 perks, or if you're on tactical, you're going to be taking this perk if you want to go for like a full melee build, or on assault, you're taking adrenaline boost, because this is just a prestige perk that does the exact same thing. And the only place this is properly performed on a weapon, the only place where they have weapon perks with no knockback that actually makes sense, are on the heavy, because heavy immunity here, while in heavy stance you don't lose control from heavy hits. Wow, that's a real choice to make. That's a perk that you definitely want to pick up, because if you're not building a strategic stand here, which gives you the exact same effect in your perk tree, then you will be taking this perk, and this one does the exact same thing as the main perk tree, which means that you're getting an equivalent value here. Because my issue is not that having no knockback perks built into the weapons are useless, because it's not that this perk fundamentally itself on the chainsword here is useless. Like Kill Streak is not fundamentally useless. The only reason this perk is useless here is because there's no reason to ever take it over the dramatically better core perk tree option. For the heavy, his weapon perk is really good on its own because it fundamentally replaces the core perk tree option, and the only thing you're losing out is this extra CHP regen, which is a real choice. You know, if you want more CHP regen, you could take this perk and be like, I'm going to give up my heavy immunity on my weapon, and then take something else, which like that's actually a pretty interesting idea. Unfortunately, that is only true for the heavy class on its no knockback perks. And another issue I have in this game is that we have perk tree options like the bulwark here, where if you have, not bulwarks, excuse me, on the sniper here, if you have a perk like Iron Grip, weapon spread and recoil reduced by 20%, and range damage against terminal level enemies is increased by 15% for both sniper rifles and stalker bolt rifles. This is just a perk that says, okay, when you're using a stalker bolt rifle, you pick me. When you're using a last fusel, you pick me. When you're using a bolt carbine, you pick this perk, because to not pick this perk makes no fucking sense for using those guns, because all the other ones do literally nothing for you. These should be built-in weapon perks. And Saber really it really feels like Saber just doesn't want to add new perks, because when we look at perk reworks in Space Marine 2, if you look at the perks that have actually been added to classes, like, for example, Active Attrition now says enemies hit by damage from melee attacks executed while sprinting or dashing take 25% more damage for 5 seconds. Previously in patch 10, this was enemies hit by any melee attack at all take 15% more damage for 3 seconds. Instead of replacing that perk, or excuse me, instead of adding a new perk in this row and just having like them be a real choice of like, hey, do I want to take active attrition for lunging attacks, or do I want to take active attrition or like the other option for just a flat 15% buff? Or even here, this used to be retribution and they completely replaced it with defense mechanism. They remove your choices, is my point, is that they are taking away perks and actively replacing them rather than adding new options, which is really fucking stupid. Like, some perks that do need a rework in this game, like Vanguard getting a tenacity perk rework was not a bad idea at all. This one now gives you a 130% bonus to your diving kick damage. That is way better than before. But if we look at the perk up here, this was also retribution. All they did to this perk was completely rework the effect. It is still god-awful. This is still a terrible, terrible perk. The other one was also awful. And instead of just adding new perks or like keeping the old one, which like made it so you got a 30% buff on being knocked back for like 20 seconds, for like 15 seconds or something like that, they just completely replaced the effect. And like, this isn't even an equivalent effect, which is the funny part. Like, retribution before functioned fundamentally differently than this one. So instead of adding a new perk, they decided to completely change the effect, which is kind of silly. And it seems like Saber's afraid to buff up certain perks. Like, if you look at Tactical, Radiating Impact has been overperforming for, like, ever. And the perk over here, Signal Jammer, has been god-awful forever. They changed this perk again to buff it up, to make it so, like, enemies automatically explode upon attempting to do so, or attempting to call reinforcements for 90 seconds. It's still terrible. I don't know why they are so afraid to just like rework a perk like this, or just make it have like a properly good function that's even remotely equivalent to this. And it does feel like Saber has to play their own game at times, because if they actually played on hard stratagems or like some of the weeklies they make, they would know that perks like this are just good 99% of the time. And the usual thing you hear from developers on this is like, oh guys, it's not about everything being completely overpowered. Like, you should really just use what you find is fun. But there are some things that make the weapons and the perks and the classes in this game fundamentally more fun. The class plays better with certain perks. And what I mean by that is, if we go back to the Thunderhammer example, this weapon plays better with fast preparation. It feels better with fast preparation. A perk like this makes it actively feel worse, because you are doing less with your weapon as like a baseline. You are simply doing more aftershocks of this. You simply have more options. There are opportunities in the game to use a double aftershock here that you simply could not do otherwise without this perk. That's a cool perk option. That's what a perk should do for your game, because the whole point of talent trees in a game like this is to open up opportunities for different playstyles, and I really don't feel like perks like Calm Before the Storm are opening up a different opportunity for my playstyle, where it says when preparing Aftershock you take 10% less range damage. Like, okay, I can tank like one extra Rubric Marine burst, maybe, with this perk active. Meanwhile, this one allows me to actually Aftershock a Karn effects, where otherwise it would be literally impossible. So like, just for that reason alone, a perk like this completely supersedes one like this, and they've been left in the game like that for eons. And like, leaving perks in a game is not exactly new to gaming. You know, Darktide will also do this, Fat Shark will do this, but in the case of Darktide has like 6 classes in the game as well now, and all of their perk trees make more sense, and the interactions in that game between blessings are just ridiculously larger. Like, the potential combinations are so big in Darktide compared to a game like this, that the fact it takes them a month to come up with a hotfix, that makes sense. You know, it's still a little bit slow even in that game, but it still makes more sense because there is a lot to actually worry about. In Space Marine 2, Fixing some of these perks should take like a week at most, and we know for a fact that Saber can update their game in a very short period of time when pressured. When Lethal Difficulty was initially released in this game, they basically updated the game within a week because people complained so much. Meanwhile, we have perks like Overcharge on the Assault that are broken for like 2 to 3 months almost, or like they were broken the entirety of patch 10. Patch 10 came out in like September 4th, and then after that, we didn't get another patch until like late November. That is how long we had to wait to fix a single perk in Space Marine 2. And there's really hard. It is hard to say it's not lazy. I'll be honest. It is just hard to say it's not lazy for the developers to wait so long to fix these perks. I know there's overhead at development studios, but like I have a hard time believing that the overhead is so dramatic that getting a single perk fixed would actually take like 2 to 3 months. That's ridiculous to me, because there's no other game I can think of that does this. Even Fat Shark, that works at a snail's pace in a lot of people's opinions, they will still hotfix their game in a faster period of time for more perk changes. Like when the Arbites was broken, the only time we ever had a perk in that game that was broken for an extended period of time was when Fat Shark literally went on vacation. Saber didn't go on vacation as far as we know. They were still working on the game. We got one hotfix this patch, and what they did was they fixed the heavy bolt pistol bug, and they fixed the heavy bolt rifle bug, and we haven't heard jack shit from them for like a week since then. And they also broke No Help Is Coming. So like in fixing this weapon's hipfire, they broke this perk to no longer allow you to stop reinforcement calls by shooting in the body. How long will it take them to fix this perk? I have no fucking idea. Given their track record, it'll probably take another month plus, if not 2 weeks at the absolute earliest. We'll see. My point is that the perk design in Space Marine 2 feels just very lazy to me, and on top of that, it feels like any hotfixes we have to literally broken perks take forever. So I'm curious to see what you guys think in the comments below. Let me know how you feel about the state of perks in Space Marine 2, weapon perks, core perk trees. If you feel like Saber Interactive is just not really caring to update or create interesting perks, and if you want to see more perks in this game. And as always, guys, thank you for watching. Take it easy. Comment below if you like content like this. And as always, bye.